Good. Welcome to True Health Tuesdays. Now, tonight we're going to talk about mind, not just mind control, but mind potential, and its relation to disease and health. What's interesting is the latest research. I was going off on a tangent to try and figure out how to lay out the importance of this, and I was looking at a couple of researchers, and I decided to look up some of the references that this one researcher who presented the material, brilliant, articulate, everything else. I go in and I find out he's wrong. So then I started to look at other research about the mental aspects of healing and disease, and oh my gosh. Okay, we're going to find out. But now, can you believe, is there any studies out there about ESP, psychokinesis, where we can actually move objects? One person's thought can affect another. Any studies out there? You're going to find out. Yes, there are. There's a ton. But what's even more interesting, now I use this guy because this blew me away. Okay, this is in the early 1900s. Imagine, okay, you're a young, healthy guy, and you answer an ad. Men wanted, hazardous journeys, small wages, bitter cold, long months of complete darkness, constant danger, safe return doubtful, honor and recognition in case of success. These guys showed up. It's like, oh my God. Okay, so now at the exact same time, or within a year, these guys had an idea to be the first people to dog sled across Antarctica. There was another mission that was going north, okay, to cross it. Now in north, they both got trapped in the ice. Both groups did. Okay, their ship was trapped. Now, no GPS, no helicopter. Okay, you got one choice: die or wait till spring. Okay, now the ice is closing in, so the only shelter that you have is going to sink. And Ernest Shackleton, he says, okay, man, take whatever you can from the ship that you find in, that we could use. He took a gold sovereign out and threw it in the snow and said, take everything that you need, leave everything that you can't use. And that was so powerful and so dramatic. What was interesting is nobody died on his crew. Okay, he held them together. So now he could have held them together by force of personality, but also his vision. Now is there any studies that show that the vision or interpretation or belief system of a medical doctor or your doctor that you have can affect you? Yes, there are. Okay, so we start looking at this. What kind of power does the mind have? What ways do we have to measure it? Well, there's three main ways, and one of them is an electroencephalogram with a functional MRI. What this is, it's a really cool hat. I know, it looks attractive, but it's got sensors on there. Okay, and what you do is you put sensory input in there. We can see what area of the brain's lighting up. Also, too, we can see if there's precognition there. Okay, if you think about something, it's not good enough to find out what you're seeing or what you're thinking about, but it can measure altered brain activity. And so we use this in some studies. Anybody see the movie Men Stares at Goats? Am I the only one? It was a really horrible movie, but I really enjoyed it. It was fun. I don't know, sometimes bad movies are just fun. But that's called direct mental interaction with living systems. Okay, can one person focus their thoughts in and affect another? Okay, and then the last one is Gansfield. Now, it's interesting, Gansfield, and no, that's actually is how they set up people for the study. What they want is like sensory deprivation. Okay, so they take golf balls, cut them in half, tape them on your eyeball so you can open your eyes without your eyelashes hitting anything. They put a red stimulus on there, and then they put white noise on the ear. So you have a monochromistic visual stimulus. So there's not a heck of a lot of input in the eyes. There's not a lot of input from the ears. And you get in this sensory deprivation. Has anyone here ever gone in those sensory deprivation tanks? You're kidding. I'm the only one. I know, I'm feeling kind of weird. Okay. Well, they got them down in Venice Beach, but what they are is water that's loaded with salt. So when you lay in it, you float above the water. Okay. And it's the exact same temperature that your body, and it's completely dark and soundproof. And within, just like Gansfield, within about 10 minutes, you start to either hallucinate or you start to possibly not hallucinate, but see things that you normally wouldn't see with your mind's eye. And the earliest reference I could find was Pythagoras. I mean, we're talking the Greek mystery school founder. I mean, these guys, they would go into a dark cave and they found out that if they had less sensory input, okay, that they were able to see different things. I mean, me and my kids, the last house I had, we had an archery range that went through the house. Obviously, there's no girls, okay, but if you stood in the bedroom and shot through the kitchen, living room, dining room, okay, up against the back wall, we got about 35 yards. Now, me and my youngest boy, we're the best shots. We can hold patterns like this, okay, which is pretty good for a traditional bow. Danny was a lot better. He used a modern bow and got tradition like this, okay? And it's all the patterns that you're shooting. Now, that's pretty good, but what was interesting is we would turn out all the lights. We would light a candle 35 yards away, and both me and my son could blow the candle out within 3 arrows. Now, the candle is only like this big of a shot, but what was different? No other input. See, the skill level wasn't any different, but the focus massively was. And I always thought that was a really cool experiment, except sometimes if you'd miss and the arrow would get on top of the flame, and we're shooting graphite arrows, you'd melt like a $10 graphite arrow. So it wasn't that much fun. Now, this has been going on since the 30s, the Gansfield studies, and what it was, and several reproducible studies where they would have somebody in another room look at 4 unrelated images. And they would pick one of those related images and then mentally send it. Okay, there's no physical connection there to somebody in another room who's in this sensory deprivation state. And, you know, you've got to figure it's about a 1 out of 4 ratio. Well, a lot of the experimenters would get in the 30-35% range, which is radically different, okay, on picking the right one. However, there's a lot of people that, and this, I saw the study and it said it's reproducible, everything else, and I thought, wow, this is like definitive stuff, okay? But then I found out that it's not definitive, that they would take the best one who got the best results on the receiver and the best sender who got the best results, they'd set up the experiment and it wasn't reproducible. I know. So then I started to think, wait a second, what's the difference here? And some of the theories are that the person that ran the study was able to change the outcome. And then it's like, okay, so that makes sense. So it's not just the sender and the receiver, it's the observer. Where have I heard that before? That the observer can actually change the outcome. Now, this was cool. This is using the neat hat, the encephaloengram, and the functional MRI. And what they did, they had that sensory input in, and they would have a group of meditators, people that consistently meditate, so their pineal gland's a little bit more aware. You know, the thought is that if you meditate more, you get out of your body and you become a more energetic, aware person. Okay, not that we're different. It's just, it's kind of like training. You know, if you go to the gym for the first time, you're not going to be that strong. And people that don't regularly meditate. And what they would do is every so often they'd give a flash of light. Okay, well, on the bottom, on the far right, you're going to see that spike. That was the actual stimulus to the brain. What it turns out is the people that practice meditation reacted before the light happened. So there's absolute reproducible evidence of precognition. And you start looking at this and saying, well, wait a second, how could they know that it was going to be flashing? There's also other studies that, and now, is light a wave or a particle? Say both. Say both. Both. You're so right. Okay, that's so cool. But How do we know that? Well, what's interesting is, just like, if you drop a pebble in the water, you know how it like ripples out? Well, if you go further, there's a ripple on top of a ripple. And so if you have multiple waves hitting a board, you're going to get what's called a resistance pattern, or you're going to get multiple lines. So we know that if we send a light wave through something, and it goes through two slits, and it's going to create a different pattern on this board. So we know that light is a wave. However, if we put a measurement device or have somebody look at the experiment, light becomes a particle. That's impossible. Just the act of observing or measuring it changes the properties. And this experiment is over and over and over. So how can the observer change the physical properties of this? And there's multiple studies on this, but there's also random number generators. Now, these things here, they're computers that are designed just to spit out ones and O's. And this is another reproducible experiment where you come up, I say, look, I want you to think of more ones. Bam, the random number generator chooses more ones. I want you to think of more zeros. It chooses more zeros. I want everybody in here to focus in on a random number generator in South Africa, and I want it to come up with more ones. Guess what happens? Comes up with more ones. 18,000 kilometers away. They did the experiment where one was in Northern California and a group of people in South Africa to change it. What you're looking at here, though, there's that world map, those little yellow dots, are a series of random number generators going on around the world. And it turns out that when 9/11 happened, there was a spike, okay, of sameness. Similar ones and zeros are coming up at the exact same time that there was a major event, when the Twin Towers fell down and everything else. So you start looking at this and say, wait a second, so does that mean as a community, our thoughts can actually affect a machine? This is absolute evidence of psychokinesis, where our thoughts can affect living things, but it can also affect machines, and it can affect the physics, the properties of light waves, so it can change things. I know, it's cool, right? Mm-hmm. This is nothing. Okay. Now, the body is 70% water, the planet 70% water. Thoughts, Dr. Emoto, this is a brilliant book, Messages from Water. And he tried thoughts, okay, which we don't know what properties they have. We don't know if it's waves. We don't know if it's particles, what a thought is. We don't know what type of energy it has. All we know is that we know what the brain reacts to different environmental stimulus. So we still don't know what a thought is, but we know it has power. And how far can it go? We know reproducibly 18,000 kilometers. Can it go further? Don't know. We know it's faster than the speed of light, too. But the top one is the water. These are water crystals from the exact same source. One was affected with prayer and love. The other, on the bottom, was just the original water sample. And this is just reproducible on everything, and it seems amazing. This one here, Japanese study, they took a group of Japanese kids. All of them were allergic to poison ivy. They took one thing of poison ivy, one leaf, and rubbed it on the arm, okay? And then they, just for control, they got another leaf and rubbed it on the other arm. And sure enough, 100% of the kids got a rash on the poison ivy arm and nothing on the other. What they didn't tell them is they switched the leaves. So these kids, with their mind, had to develop a histamine response on an arm with nothing, with something that wouldn't cause a histamine reaction, and they had to suppress a histamine response on the arm that was supposed to have the reaction. Wow. So how fast could we get over abnormal recognition of protein, which is what an allergy is? Instantly, if we knew that we had that potential. Do these guys understand that thought is involved in healthcare? No, it's not. It's not. And what's interesting, it's kind of like we're the first people to really realize that the world is round. This is all flat earth technology. And it's insane to think that a gastroenterologist is not taught nutrition. He's not taught that if the person is in pain, that there's going to be decreased blood supply to the gut. The gastroenterologist isn't the psychologist, even though 90% of the body's serotonin is produced in the gut. And the serotonin is the feel-good hormone, intimately involved in correction of fibromyalgia. When you think fibromyalgia, do you go to the gastroenterologist? No. Heck, he's still prescribing antacids. And we know that indigestion doesn't come from too much acid. That's just foolishness. I mean, there's not a profession on here that understands. You know, they're calling it holistic. No, you got to look at the whole body. I could stimulate this guy's toe with my heel. Say, ow. Okay. Oh, that was dramatic. He's really good. He's taken years of acting. Okay, but if I crush his toe, what's it going to be like? Okay, his heart rate's going to be elevated, his cholesterol's going to be elevated, blood pressure's going to be elevated. Nobody understands the sympathetic dominance of the pattern, how that alters physiology, because they're not built for that. These are the three causes of disease: trauma, toxicity, and thought. We know this, okay? And when you look at it, toxicity, that could be some type of environmental exposure. But this is huge. Thought: if a mind misinterprets environmental signals and generates an inappropriate response, a thought could be enough to undermine an entire system. Misperceptions can be lethal. If you and me rode a roller coaster, okay, do you like roller coasters? Yeah, I hate them. Okay, perfect example. Okay, he'd get off, feel great, elated, his immune system be strong. I'd get out in abject terror. Okay, my cortisol levels would be through the roof, my immune system would be weakened. Okay, you know, driving fast cars, anybody like that, or anybody afraid of it? Okay, good, yeah. I drive a 30-year-old veggie burning car, not known for its speed. This weekend, I go up to San Francisco, I had a rental car. Oh my God, it was so much fun. They've come a long way in 30 years. But look at this too. A misinterpretation of the environmental signals could be lethal. Just a roller coaster ride could weaken my immune system. But what if your body recognized a genetically modified protein inside of let go egg on my waffle? Okay, you know, obviously that's toxic food, but if your body recognized that as a problem, anaphylactic shock, that waffle could kill you. Okay, where it's not really poisonous, but it's your response to that. Now, this is something I was never expecting. Meditation, the World Economic Fund. Do you think these guys are spiritual? No. Money grubbers, money changers. Okay, I wouldn't think. No, that was my prejudice. Because I'm thinking World Economic Fund, these guys maker and breakers of countries. But no, what they're finding out now, mindfulness and mindful leadership. So then I start to think about the psychokinesis of the number generators when the world had a crisis in 9/11, how they all formed together. So maybe these guys are starting to look at that data and saying, maybe we could positively affect the economies of the world with mindful thoughts. And I love this. Google, Twitter, energy companies, state-owned companies in China, UN, government, World Banks. Leaders are facing more situations that require them to access their self-awareness and emotional intelligence in order to be successful. No, I'm supposed to hear, wow! That's so cool! Because think of this. The bankers are thinking about us, about the planet as a whole, for more effective business. So, and then when you look at the bottom, even a few hours of meditation can change the epigenetics of our brain. Now, there's genetic expression, and there's a control above the genes. I actually had to answer a question from some guy that said I was crazy that cancer, of course, is genetic. It can't be. Okay, not if it affected 3% of the population 100 years ago, now it affects 50%. That's a genetic epidemic. Our species would be dead. It can't happen. So when you look at this, epigenetic control above the genes. So that means that meditation can control gene expression. Now we know pharmaceuticals, and this was a great one out of Metabolism and Clinical Experimental. We know that the pharmaceutical products have an epigenetic control and could be the source of heart disease, cancer, diabetes, leukemia, infertility, sexual dysfunction. And that's all pharmaceuticals. We have a great one here. What's the number one prescribed drug in America? Say Tylenol. Tylenol. Tylenol is close. Tylenol is gentler and safer on your stomach. And one of our patients just brought this thing in from one of the pharmacies, and it says, be careful with Tylenol. I mean, the FDA wants to get it in smaller and smaller doses because it is the deadliest drug in America, much more deadly than any street drug, in fact, of all street drugs combined. And it says if you take a Tylenol along with like NyQuil or Dayquil or anything else that has more Tylenol, it could cause permanent liver damage, and you only have one liver. That's why it's the deadliest drug in America. So it's foolishness to take a toxic chemical to change physiology. It doesn't work that way. So we're showing evidence that the mind is involved in healing and disease. You can think yourself well and think yourself sick. We've got evidence of psychokinesis and precognition. Absolute evidence. Okay, so what do we do to change this? You got to look at this, and this is what the majority of the people on the planet are going through. They just do what they're told. Okay, this is why I don't know how a person can watch television and see, you know, this beautiful girl running through the field of flowers, taking this Lyrica that's great for her fibromyalgia symptoms. Of course, side effects are suicide, death, depression, bleeding from the eyes. You know, and you're going, holy, 20 years from now they'll be playing that as a joke. You know, they'll say, my God, somebody bought that stuff. So the first stage is questioning. Like, are you serious? You're really going to take that? And the third one is, why are we here? I mean, Mark Twain said the two most important days in your life are one, the day you're born, and the second, the day you find out why you're here. I know, it was pretty good. I know. Okay, now disease doesn't really exist. And I know this is a tough concept, but what does diabetes weigh? How heavy is cancer outside of the body? What's the shape of abnormal blood pressure? Does anyone know what psoriasis looks like away from the body? No. All of those are the body adapting to toxicity, trauma, thought. Alzheimer's, fibromyalgia, Lou Gehrig's, none of these exist. What does fibromyalgia look like outside of the body? How much does it weigh? I'll have a pound of fibro? No, none of that stuff makes sense. So they don't exist. And that's why it's such a belief system that thinks that we should treat that instead of looking at that as a brilliant adaptation of the body. 96% of all diseases, there is no cancer gene. And this is a tough one too. Because, I mean, Angelina Jolie, okay, had 2 healthy breasts removed. That's, in my book, that's wrong. But is it wrong? My belief system is that, you know, we're talking over, I think it's like 70% of the people have that BRCA1 gene, okay, and it's the expression of that gene that you got to be concerned with. But if her belief system was she has the gene, she's going to get what? Cancer. So if her belief system was along those lines, then it's probably a good idea that she removed them. Wow. I know. It's a bummer because I want to be right, but she was probably right, depending on her belief systems. Now here's one. And imagine, when we talk about the belief system of the doctor, is vital depending on your recovery or your progression of the illness. A study out of the British Medical Journal, a systematic review of physicians' survival predictions in terminally ill cancer patients. It means that they said, you know, sir, this disease has an 80% fatality rate, okay? Dead in 6 months. Is he in the 20% that's going to live fine?
He's going to think about dying.
He's going to think about dying. And luckily, according to the study, he'll comply. Okay, that's awful nice. Okay, and now now I'm reading the study and I'm going, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Look at the conclusion in here. The clinicians consistently overestimate survival. Okay, so if statistically the person is going to be dead in 8 months, they say, look, you could have a year and a half to live. However, since the patient is going to follow the belief systems of the doctors, right? Has nothing to do with physiology or anything. Now, are my thoughts affecting him, or is there perception of my thoughts affecting him, or is there an energy? We don't know yet because we can't measure it. Okay, but look at this. The predictions have a discriminatory ability even if they're miscalibrated, so they're adding to the time. Clinicians for caring for patients with terminal cancer need to be aware that the tendency to overestimate survival, it may affect the patient's prospects for achieving a good death. Think of that, okay? If you're suffering, I mean, my ex-wife, her husband has 9 rounds of chemo. Healthy, or is he going to leave the planet soon? He's going to leave the planet soon, okay? And he's suffering. If we had a dog in that, the ASPCA would be, arresting you. He's being tortured. But why? Because no one's gone up to him and said, man, you had a great life. You've been here. You're more energy than matter. There's another adventure you can go on. Okay, you're loved and appreciated. You can go. No, they said, you got so much time left, you're going to be fine. And he's just being tortured. I mean, it's crazy that it can be affected. Now, here's a study that blew me away. Now, let's just read the last. We may conclude that apparently we're able to cure memory adenocarcinoma in experimental mice on demand. That means the cure for breast cancer on demand with thought. Yeah, okay, I'm reading this, and I'm reading this afternoon, and I go, I've never seen we have the cure for cancer on demand with thought. So now, how did it happen? So this guy here, now, he's William F. Bensington. Okay, he wrote the book called The Energy Cure. So he's into meditation and thought and that we're more energy. He would hold a mice for about an hour for like 5-6 weeks. The mice were supposed to die in between 14 and 28 days. They're supposed to die. We know that. And they were hoping for a little bit longer life. Talking between 90 and 100% remission. Cancer gone. But when you look at this, the 5 experimental mice with mammary adenocarcinoma should have been dead within 14 to 27 days. He treated these mice. By treating them, he held them in their cage like this for about an hour. Okay, not actually touching them. The tumors developed a blackened area. They ulcerated, imploded, and closed, and the mice lived a normal lifespan. So instead of surgically removing the tumor, they allowed the body to inflame, to have the immune system response, to exudate, get that pus. I mean, literally get it. And when you look at the people that have recovered from cancer, like Dr. Lorraine Day, she's got this giant, massive tumor that's fulminating, pussing, her lymph nodes are swollen up to the size of walnuts, and they're saying, we should take these out. She said, no, that's my immune system. And I spoke with her at the American Cancer, or the Cancer Control Society last year. Now, so this guy, is he gifted? No. They got 5 volunteers, student volunteers. They got a faculty member to do the same thing. So, and what's amazing is they were hoping just for a reduction, but it got remission. And it's interesting, the students thought that they were, you're a student, I'm going to have you hold this mouse for an hour for the next 5 weeks and think positive intense. The students thought they were in a study for gullibility. Okay, now it didn't have anything to do with the belief system of the mouse. And it sure as heck didn't have anything to do with the belief system of the students because they weren't even believing it. It's just the act of it. So what is thought? I mean, if thought can affect animals like that, it's incredible. The belief system of the doctor, the belief system of the patient is primary. It doesn't matter the recipient. The mouse didn't know. They were just in that field. And diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, are these diseases or just the body adapting? If your doctor thinks they are a disease, if you think they are a disease, your outcome is bad. Okay, it's like dying. This gal here, I mean, she's neat. The kid is just a joy. But when she came in, she had, that's little Eli. He was inside of her 3-month-old fetus, tumor the size of a grapefruit. She went to multiple doctors and they said, look, you got 2 choices. We abort the kid and remove the tumor, or if we take the tumor, the kid's going to be born deformed. Okay, she's Catholic, didn't like that, she wanted option 3. Okay, so her sister brought her in here, and I know it's kind of weird, you know, I've got a tumor and a baby, and I'm going to a chiropractor? Yeah, well, luckily I had a diagnostic ultrasound machine at the time, so we looked at it within a month, and we adjusted the area because I know the body has the kidney and pancreas, and that's what solves tumors in the body, and also the immune system. So we're adjusting our nervous system, and within a month we see it shrink to half. Within about 2-3 months it shrink down to about the size of a lemon, a little bit smaller than that. And I didn't want to bombard the kid with more ultrasound, so when the kid's born there was no tumor. But what was her belief system? What was my belief system? What would, you know, because it comes to a state where it's not a right or a wrong decision. What I want everybody to understand is the potential of regeneration, the potential of disease reversal. It's incredible. I mean, we know when we grew up, this is the model of the atom that we saw. We now know the correct model is the one on the right. The atom doesn't exist. It's energy blinking in and out of existence. And we're composed of atoms. So you're just looking at a reflection of light photons bouncing off of 70 trillion cells held together in one form that has an affinity for each cell. If you've ever seen a live blood cell analysis, you'll see the activity and joy and life and war and battle going on in a drop of blood. It's incredible. This gal here, she came down from San Francisco, diagnosed with lupus. She went to, 15 doctors? Yeah, 15 different doctors. Okay, now, you get a 7-year-old with joint pain and a red rash. Differential diagnosis?
Lupus.
Lupus. Good. He's a doctor. Yeah, now, that's what we're taught. We're taught symptoms, collection, regurgitate. Okay. Have you passed all your boards? Yeah, okay. Yeah, he's really smart. Okay. Yeah. But now his belief system, luckily he's a good doctor, okay? He knows that lupus doesn't exist outside of the body, that lupus is an adaptation of toxicity and deficiency. So I had to list her parents, and I said, well, honey, you know, when did you get this? I said, well, she was playing in a sandbox one day, and they dumped new sand in there, and the next day she got joint pain. And so I said, honey, you think it was the sand that did it? She said, yeah, the parents are all going like this and everything. And I said, well, were there other kids in there? Yeah, did they all get lupus? No, just her. I said, well, what I want to do, I want to find out what's going on with your body. Where can we strengthen it so that we can get rid of this? I said, does that make sense? I don't think it was the sand. I think it was your reaction to the sand. I think the sand was okay. She said, yeah, that makes sense. Sure enough, she doesn't have lupus anymore. You know, it's kind of neat, you know. And so this is when it's so hard to condense in like half hour, 45 minutes, the potential of the human mind. We know we got psychokinesis. We know we can move things. We know we can affect things. We can move light. We can change light from a wave to a particle. We know that we can affect other structures. We know that we can reverse cancer with thought in mice. Okay, duh. We know that we can affect positive living organisms cellular at a cellular level. There's a dozen other studies in here. There was one study that I didn't have time to print up. It was on egg albumin. Okay, we're talking protein from a chicken, where positive thoughts put in there change the protein structure. And it's like, the egg doesn't have a belief system. You know, I mean, this is beyond compare. So any event that you have, let's say you have chronic depression, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, cancer, whatever, those are just the current symptoms that you have because it's from trauma, toxicity, or thought. Your response is everything. If you view that as just a temporary symptom. When I was run over by a car and had my legs broken, I thought, wow, that's an event. You know, you can't really go back in time yet. Oh God, when you look at time is not a sequential order of things. Time is variable. In fact, time slows down with speed. So if we can speed up our thoughts, can we go back through time? Yes, we can. Okay, but that's a whole different subject. But so when you look at that, your response to it. So what if you're healing a joint? Every time you take a step, ow, that hurts. Oh, my knee is being destroyed. Or the other response, that's inflammation. That's my body regenerating new tissue. Yeah. I'm getting stronger. Yeah, and it works, okay? Because the outcome is everything. If you feel and know that you're deteriorating, or if you feel you know you're rebuilding. This guy here, I mean, he's a patient. I go to his house, and he's got a progressive degenerative condition called Lou Gehrig's disease, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. Now, he couldn't speak, and I mean, he couldn't communicate. He couldn't smell. He couldn't move his legs. So I start going over and adjusting him, and sure enough, after about 4 or 5 months, he can start to smell. He can start to lift his arms. We got him on a bike, okay, to stimulate his brain, and it's kind of fun because I went over and he says, "Hi, Doc." This is a couple of months ago, and I go, "Wow, that's cool. How long have you been speaking?" "All weekend, huh? Cool." I mean, what's his potential? In my belief system, it's full recovery. In his belief system, I don't know. Okay, but I know that I'm the first doc that said, "Hey, look, what caused the amyotrophic lateral sclerosis? Trauma, toxicity, or thought." Okay, so we can change the thought right now, change your potential. It's limitless potential. This is the new healthcare model. It's not Obamacare. That's never going to work. I mean, that's obviously never going to work. Okay, obviously. Okay. There's an innate intelligence in the body. We know that. There's a brilliance that holds the 70 trillion cells together. Health is the natural state of the body. Wow, that's a concept. So instead of looking at fighting disease, instead of fighting the war on drugs, okay, understand that health is the natural state. So anything abnormal, let's add health, not add drugs. All therapies must be in harmony with the functions of the body. Oh, wow, cool. So that means taking a toxic anti-inflammatory that damages the liver for temporary comfort? Probably not a good idea. That wouldn't be in the new healthcare model. Altering physiology with a blood pressure or cholesterol drug? Again, that'd be foolish, because that's going against the natural state of the human body. You got to figure, if you have toxic food and your artery used to be big and it's smaller now, what's going to happen to blood pressure in order to get the same amount of nutrients to the system? It has to go up. So high blood pressure is not a disease. It's an adaptation to smaller or damaged arteries or toxic blood. All vaccinations will stop until long-term independent research is completed. I'm not against vaccines. I'm pro-safe, effective, long-term therapies that don't have negative side effects for the majority of the population. 50% of our kids have a chronic illness or disease. So obviously, medical schools will no longer accept fundings or research from the pharmaceutical industry. That makes sense. I was looking at some research, and you start to see the same results in the drug as opposed to the placebo group. They don't have to tell you what's the placebo. The drug companies are running the studies. And then it's just mind-boggling. Healthcare research must be independent. Obviously, pharmaceutical industries will be financially and morally responsible for their product. Number one killer in America, Tylenol. Who's been arrested for this? Okay, does anybody know how this works? No. Neither do they. It's okay. Yeah, when you look up the clinical pharmacology, it says mechanism of action is unknown. We don't know. This is the world that's going to change. And all humans will be able to choose any health care they want. We have one of our patients who has state aid. She's choosing not to vaccinate her beautiful, healthy baby. Okay, and they're going to reduce her state aid $200 a month because she's not vaccinated. Okay, I know. So we're going to change that. So we have to change our brain, and that's why this handout, it's the same handout we had for goals and for goal setting, but it's really changing your mind. Because if you got goals, it's beyond just financial, it's beyond, romantic, you get a chance to finally date that nice person, okay, or it's beyond travel. If you have chronic fatigue, or if you have high blood pressure, if you have some disease, what's your goal? Health. But it's got to be worded a little bit different, okay? So many people I have, what do you want? Oh, just to get out of pain. Okay, good. Yeah, you're going to be always in a level of pain, so you're always getting out of it. Okay, do you see what I mean? Yeah, I'm out of pain now. Mark Twain said quitting smoking was the easiest thing he's done, ever. In fact, he's done it 100 times. I know. So when you're setting a goal for health, it's dynamic and health and positive and in the present tense. And to change your state, this is where neurolinguistic programming comes from. And I don't care if you're bedridden, if you're quadriplegic. By God, pull your shoulders back, change your state, breathe. Your intonation and volume are everything. If you say, yes, I'm healthy, I'm dynamic, I'm regenerating tissue. You're not believing me, are you? No. I'm healthy, I'm dynamic, I'm regenerating my tissue.
No.
Hell, you can feel my tissue regeneration from there, can't you? Yeah, baby. Why? Because we're more than just a physical being. I mean, this is incredible. This is all involved in programming the unconscious mind. It really is. And make it limitless. I mean, this is the slide because I was kind of rushed. I wanted to get all the cancer mouse stuff, and I was just, God, I was reading. This was like for an informationaholic. This was great, man. And imagine this limitless. What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? Would you reverse the disease? Would you regenerate the tissue? Would you do, anything? Go skydiving, write the book. I mean, it's fun. Anything is possible. You just got to design it. Now, this truly is what you require to focus your mind. And this is the same 5 things that we come up with on everything. But it's true. Health is really simple. It's not that complicated. You need to get your nervous system checked. Why? Because when we both rode on the roller coaster, my nervous system said that I was in a state of stress. His was in a state of joy. So if you have pressure on it, you got to get it checked. Regular exercise. This means at least a half-hour a day of movement. If you're not exercising, that's movement deficiency syndrome. Your lymph is static or stasis. You're going to die. Proper nutrition. This means that man makes it, you don't eat it. Okay, particularly nowadays, okay, with the genetically modified, the toxic chemicals and things, just plants. I mean, it's so easy. Last night I tossed a hunk of barley and a hunk of wild rice, boiled it for like 20 minutes, put a little bit of tomato, a little bit of jalapeno in there, tablespoon of coconut oil. Huh? You telling me that doesn't sound good? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was 20 minutes. I didn't have to do hardly anything. Okay, sufficient rest. This means you got to sleep every night without the TV on. Prayer and meditation. Now, do you value prayer and meditation more? If the World Economic Fund is using this to change the focus of countries? Wow. Yep, that's huge. Now, all of these slides, all of the handouts, they're all going to be on, and this is for everybody on YouTube. They're all on our website. It's free access to the world for 7 days. And what's neat is spread the information. Because could we change the world for a positive? World Economic Fund thinks so. We got potential to reverse disease and regain health. And this is like for forever. Isn't that cool? I know. Yeah, it's the world I'm designing. I think you'll like it. Yeah, now, next week, we're going to talk about the legal aspects of health, vaccines, food labels, and guest speaker, Nikki Janine Stewart. And next Thursday, I'm going to be talking about healthy heart, cardiac arrhythmias, and heart attacks, how to reverse them. Since that's the leading, well, officially it's one of the leading causes of death, but we're going to go over what the real cause of death. Thank you very much.